They say every family has its secrets, but mine? Mine unraveled one warm Friday night under the glow of patio lights and the steam of a bubbling jacuzzi. What started as a typical evening, a ruined party and a quiet retreat to the safety of home, took an unexpected turn that I could never have imagined. It was barely 9 o'clock on Friday night, and I was not happy as I pulled into the driveway at my mom's house. This was my last summer before heading to college, and spending Friday night with my family was not high on my list. Unfortunately, my friend Lisa's parents had come home earlier than expected, and our Friday night party plans had come to an abrupt and dramatic end. I could still picture the look on Lisa's father's face when he walked in the door and found a high school party just getting underway. I imagined I had a similar look on my own face when I walked out of the kitchen armed with a bottle of vodka and a stack of red cups, nearly colliding with Lisa's mom. Most of my friends were going to regroup and hang out together, but I was more inclined to hurry home and figure out if I needed to go into damage control mode. I was worried Lisa's parents might have already called my mom and painted a picture of drinking and partying. It only took me 5 minutes to get from Lisa's driveway to my front door, but I was still nervous and dreading the possibility of my mom being on the phone with a screaming Lisa's mom, like that scene from A Christmas Story. Putting as much confidence into my voice as possible, I stepped into the foyer and called out, "Hi, I'm home." Nothing, not a sound. Maybe my mom was already asleep? Could I be that lucky? As I headed upstairs and into my bedroom, I heard music and the sound of jacuzzi jets through my open bedroom window. I thought, that's where they are. Jacuzzi time and wine were pretty typical for my mom and stepdad on a Friday night. That could only help my case. My mom usually dragged my stepdad straight to bed after their jacuzzi sessions. Peeking out the window overlooking the backyard, I couldn't believe my luck. My stepdad, Andrew, was alone in the large, in-ground jacuzzi. No sign of my mom at all. Andy appeared to be just chilling out with a glass of wine in his hand and listening to whatever alt/indie/weird band he was into that week. This was a major win for me. Andy would not only not freak out if Lisa's mom called, there was a good chance he might not even mention it to my mom. All things considered, Andy was pretty cool for a stepdad. My stepdad, Andy, had entered my life when I was 15, and over the past 7 years, he'd proven himself to be a pretty great addition to the family. Andy seemed to understand his role perfectly. He was my stepdad, not my father, and he never tried to force a dynamic that didn't fit. He was kind, patient, and genuinely helpful. I had to admit, too, for a man in his mid-50s, he was undeniably good-looking. His dark, expressive eyes, tan, healthy skin, and a full head of salt and pepper hair often earned him comparisons to a Hollywood star. I thought about that for a moment, and then glanced again through the blinds at Andy sitting in the jacuzzi. A couple of years ago, he had a serious health scare that made him completely revamp his lifestyle. Now, he was an avid cyclist and made sure to lift weights in the garage at least 3 times a week. It hadn't happened overnight, but eventually, he managed to shed the soft middle-aged belly and gain enough muscle to turn heads. Some of my friends had even commented on my gorgeous, sexy stepdad, something that had initially felt weird but was hard to deny. Lisa, of all people, once confessed to fantasizing about Andy, a revelation that had left me feeling both awkward and, strangely, a little proud of him. I reacted with disgust to those comments, but thinking about Andy without clothes on wasn't all that disgusting. Besides his good looks and decent body, I sometimes couldn't help but notice what he was wearing in his shorts. I knew I wasn't supposed to notice those things, but they were hard to ignore. As if on cue, Andy stood up in the hot tub to get more wine while I stared out the window. The new and improved Andy 2.0, as he called himself, was tall and relatively slim. The hot tub, which was the size of a small pool, was deep, and when Andy stood up, the bubbling, foamy water still came up to his ribs. I think he looked pretty good. Andy grabbed his phone from the side of the spa to start a new playlist, and I realized he wasn't just spying on his stepdad, he was watching him. What the hell am I doing? I thought with more than a trace of embarrassment. My embarrassment quickly turned to shock as Andy stepped away from the jets and into the center of the hot tub, where the water was calm and less opaque. It was then that I realized he wasn't wearing a bathing suit. Blushing from head to toe, I knew I should stop staring. I should close the blinds and distract myself with a movie, or Instagram, or Twitter, or even just go to bed. I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I continued to watch my stepdad. As I watched, I realized two things. First, I really wanted Andy to turn around and take a look at his tool. Second, he realized he was feeling a tingling sensation all over his body. What the hell? I said, as I watched Andy, while also remembering my friend Lisa's fantasies. I wanted to stop staring, but at the same time I wanted to see more. I was watching from my room, feeling disappointed because I couldn't see clearly through the bubbling water of the jacuzzi. So, I decided to put on a swimsuit and join Andy in the jacuzzi. When I opened the door that led to the patio, he was facing away from me, completely relaxed. I walked over and gently touched the back of his neck. He turned slightly and said, "I was waiting for you. You're back early." I couldn't help but laugh as I replied, "You were really waiting for me?" knowing full well he was actually expecting my mom. You should have seen Andy's face when he realized it was me who had approached him. He looked nervous and quickly said, "I thought it was your mom coming over. I'm sorry." I could tell he was a mix of emotions, embarrassment, surprise, maybe even a little panic. I smiled and asked, "Can I join you?" He hesitated for a moment, clearly flustered, but eventually nodded and said yes. I stepped into the jacuzzi slowly, deliberately, letting the warm water envelop me. I noticed how he instinctively shifted, clearly remembering he wasn't wearing anything underneath. He tried to cover himself subtly, but the water and the bubbles already hid everything, so I couldn't see a thing even if I'd wanted to. Andy cleared his throat and asked, "What happened to the party?" I sighed and told him about the disaster, how it all fell apart, and why I decided to come back home early. "Sorry for interrupting your plans," I said with a playful tone, tilting my head. Then, with a teasing smile, I added, "But seriously, why are you sitting here all alone in the dark?" He replied, "Your mom had an emergency. She said if she wasn't back by 10, she'd stay to cover a shift." I guess that's what happened. I nodded and said with a small smile, "I guess all three of us had our plans ruined tonight." I couldn't resist teasing him a little, just to see his reaction. Smiling, I leaned closer to grab a glass of wine from the tray nearby. For a moment, I think he thought I was going to do something else, and I couldn't help but laugh softly at the look on his face. I took a sip of the wine, savoring it, and then downed the rest like it was water. Setting the glass down, I turned to him and said in a suggestive but playful tone, "Andy, you look really good. All that effort you've put in has definitely paid off." Then, with a mischievous grin, I asked, "Can I touch your arms?" He seemed a little flustered but managed to smile and thank me. Nervously, but clearly trying to play it cool, he flexed one arm for me to feel. I reached out, running my hand over the firm muscle, and couldn't help but tease him a little more. "Very impressive," I said, grinning as he chuckled nervously. Suddenly, he grabbed his glass of wine and drank it all in one go, almost like he was stealing himself. Then, with a bit more confidence, he said, "You're very beautiful." I could see he was trying to gather courage, and I decided to keep it light, playful. Smiling mischievously, I tilted my head and replied, "You think so? Tell me, what do you like about me? Why do you think I'm beautiful?" I watched as he hesitated for a moment, clearly surprised by my boldness. His expression was a mix of nervousness and sincerity, and it only made me more curious to hear his answer. Andy hesitated for a moment, then said, "Well, you're beautiful. You have gorgeous eyes, a lovely face, and such smooth, glowing skin. And your lips. I love your lips." His words caught me off guard, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I leaned in, letting my instincts take over, and kissed him. To my surprise, he kissed me back. The moment felt surreal, like it was happening outside of time. My heart raced, and I couldn't believe what was unfolding. Everything happened so quickly, as if the world around us had vanished, leaving only the two of us in that warm, bubbling water. The steam from the jacuzzi rose into the night air, wrapping around us like a warm blanket. The soft patio lights made everything feel more intimate, almost unreal. I felt the bubbling water gently caress my skin as I leaned back against the edge, watching him. There was something in the way he looked at me, a mix of tenderness and intensity, that made the rest of the world fade away. He leaned in slightly, and I felt his hand brush a damp strand of hair away from my face. It was a simple gesture, but it carried something that made my heart beat faster. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, everything went silent, as if even the bubbles had decided to give us privacy. I don't know who moved first, but soon our lips met. It was a sweet kiss at first, soft, as if we were both exploring something new and precious. My hand instinctively reached up to his cheek, feeling the warmth of his skin under my fingers. He deepened the kiss, and my entire world shrank to that instant, that touch, that connection. When we pulled apart, I couldn't help but smile, my lips still tingling. He looked at me with that smile of his, the one that always made me feel like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Without saying a word, he reached under the water and took my hand, intertwining his fingers with mine. I leaned back against the edge of the jacuzzi, gazing up at the starry sky, feeling his thumb gently stroke the back of my hand. In that moment, with the warmth of the water and his closeness, everything was perfect. We didn't need words. The night, the stars, and the rhythm of our hearts were enough. I'm still processing what just happened. I was left trembling, and now I understand my mom. Andy is remarkable. We didn't have much time, fearing someone might catch us, but every second of our encounter will stay with me forever. Andy asked me not to tell anyone and said he deeply regretted it, though I had no intention of sharing it with anyone anyway. What started as a disastrous and somewhat sad night turned into the most incredible experience of my life. And honestly, I'm not the least bit sorry. In fact, I think I'd do it again without a second thought.